Humans have been using fire for over 1,000,000 years, for an assortment of purposes. Long ago, we used it for protection, cooking, light, and warmth. More recently, humans have harnessed the power of fire to work with metal, make tools, and produce energy. These are skills which have helped create the civilization we have today. Our society could not exist without fire, but a large percentage of the population knows almost nothing about what fire actually is. In this video, to the best of my abilities, I'm going to answer the question, what is fire? To truly understand fire, you have to understand that everything is made up of microscopic particles called atoms. When I say everything, I mean everything. Your food is made of atoms. Your house is made of atoms. Your pets are made of atoms. Even you are made of atoms. Everything in existence is made of atoms. Usually these atoms, once they come together as food, or pets, or houses, or people, they are forced to stay together by certain laws that all atoms have to obey. So, everything on Earth, all matter, is made of atoms. Another thing you should also know is that these groups of atoms can come in 3 different forms, called states of matter. You've seen them all. Matter can be in the form of a solid, liquid, or a gas. Your food, house, pets, and you are all examples of solids. Water, made from the atoms hydrogen and oxygen, can be all 3. Frozen water is a solid. Between certain temperatures, water is a liquid, and then when it boils, it becomes gas. Now, whatever form the matter takes, it is still a mix of atoms. At a basic level, you can call it a chemical combination. In fact, you could say that everything is a chemical.
I'm a chemical.
Think about this. Here is a diagram showing the chemical composition of the average human body. It's strange to think that your mom is put together from just these chemicals. It's unbelievable to imagine that less than 25 chemicals are required to make an intelligent life form like your mom or you. Now think about wood. It shares many of the same atoms with your mom, but in different percentages and in different combinations. For example, your mom and wood share carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen atoms. So here's what you need to remember. Everything is made of atoms, and everything is a chemical. Now let's think about fire. Remember when I said earlier that matter can either be a solid, a liquid, or a gas? I have a question for you. What category do you think fire falls in? Is it a solid, a liquid, or a gas? The answer is that fire is none of the above. Sometimes things are not quite one or the other. They are more like in-between states, where they are changing from one form to another. When water changes from ice to liquid to steam, whatever state it's in, it's still water. Sometimes changes can happen that occur on the atomic level. When these changes happen, something begins as one thing and ends as something else. This is a change in its chemistry. This type of extreme transformation is called a chemical reaction. There are many different types of chemical reactions where matter changes its chemistry. Fire is the type of chemical reaction called combustion that changes matter from a solid into a gas. Chemical reactions don't occur by accident. Fortunately, the things around us are mostly stable. The chemicals are happy together, and they stay that way. Your pets are not suddenly going to turn into honey, and your house is not going to turn into a storm cloud. However, there are times when chemicals do change. Chemical reactions can actually change matter from one form to another. The chemical reaction we're talking about, fire, begins with heat. When you add heat to some chemical combinations, such as stone, or steak, or a candle, the first thing that happens is that the heat causes the atoms to begin to speed up. As they begin to move around faster and faster, they start to lose their grip on one another. So, for example, let's say carbon and hydrogen atoms come together to make up a piece of wood. If you begin to heat up the wood, the bonds between carbon and hydrogen break down. This is the beginning of fire. Fire is only possible at a certain temperature, about 500 degrees Fahrenheit. As the heat or temperature begins to rise, the atoms making up a fuel, like wood, begin to totally break apart. They used to be friends, willing to stick together in chemical friendship, no matter what. With enough heat, though, they start to release their chemical friendship bonds. The atoms speed up, chemical bonds break apart, and the atoms start moving away from each other. The whole thing is like a chaotic kung fu fight, and it causes big changes. The chemical friendship breaks up with a snap. Did you get that? Snap. The heat creates this crazy fast motion of atoms, and heat causes the snapping of chemical bonds. Also, at around 500 degrees, something else very strange begins to happen, and it has to do with oxygen. Oxygen is in the air around us, floating about, helping us to breathe and stay alive. It's usually just minding its own business. But when the temperature rises, the oxygen atoms start to grab hold of carbon and hydrogen atoms that have just broken up, and they form new types of chemical friendship bonds. All this activity resulting from heat is called oxidation. Oxidation takes a solid, like a piece of wood, and turns it into a gas. It also raises the temperature so much that it pushes the fuel into its ignition point and beyond. The piece of wood, the fuel, then bursts into flame, and you have fire. For a fire to occur, you need only 3 things. You can see them here on what's called the fire triangle. Fire can only happen if you have a fuel, something that will burn, air, in other words oxygen, and heat. But it has to be enough heat to ignite the fuel. It's good that you need around 500 degrees Fahrenheit to start a fire, because otherwise everything around you would be bursting into flames. You only need 3 things to start a fire. That's easy. Some type of fuel that will burn, plenty of oxygen, and a source of heat to begin the process of combustion. But what happens on the atomic level with the atoms going crazy and chemical bonds breaking and reforming? That is amazing and complex. Take this example. What you're seeing here are the chemical reactions occurring on the match head in slow motion. When people first started making and using fires, they didn't understand anything about atoms, oxidation, or chemical reactions. However, they had seen fires started by lightning and sparks, so they did understand the fire triangle and the fact that the fire required fuel, air, and lots of heat. One of the ways that they began starting fires 5,000 or 6,000 years ago was by using a bow drill. The bow drill method of starting a fire uses just a few simple tools. A bow, like a bow and arrow, a spindle, a fireboard, a spindle cap, an ember catcher, and the fuel for the fire. The bow drill method works by friction. It supplies the heat of the fire triangle. As the bow moves back and forth and spins the spindle faster and faster, it begins to produce more and more heat. At a certain point, around 300 degrees, you will begin to see smoke. At around 500 degrees, the friction creates a ember from the superheated dust. You then have to carefully move the ember into the tender nest. At this point, you need to supply the third element of the fire triangle, oxygen. As you can see, you have to supply a constant, steady supply of oxygen. Once the chemical reaction begins, once you see an actual flame, the fire is then hot enough to become self-sustaining. As long as it has enough fuel and oxygen, it will continue to burn. I hope you learned something about fire from watching this video. Just remember that while fire may be common, it's actually a very strange thing. It's not a form of matter. It's not a solid, a liquid, or gas. It's a chemical reaction that changes matter at the atomic level. It can take a piece of wood, for example, and change it into water, carbon dioxide, smoke and ash, and soot, which gives fire its glow. It takes heat to create fire, then the fire creates its own additional heat. Fire is amazing. It can create and it can destroy. It has also changed how humans live on planet Earth. We wouldn't be who we are today without fire.